through our investigations is when I just watched the Richard Ramirez and the John Wayne Gacy documentaries, and the way that they, it's really interesting to see the predictability of certain serial killers and what makes a killer. And I think you have to look at that in this case as well. Was this a straight up, person with major psychopathy? Like you said, it's unpredictable, Danelle.
Well, here's the thing. I used to say this a long time ago, and I still believe it, and I still say it. Whoever did this horrible crime didn't blink an eye, and these people or person they're extremely dangerous, because it either means they did it before or they're going to do it again, because you don't come back from that. Right. You don't come back from the brutality and the savageness that was done to those little boys, let alone Darlie. You don't come back from that. So
we haven't seen anything like that again.
The most scariest thing of all to me is knowing that somebody like this is still out and about.
And I feel like this person who's as dangerous to kill 2 children is up there with Richard Ramirez, John Wayne Gacy. This person, this person clearly has no empathy or sympathy for even a child.
Ramirez is interesting,
and most killers don't even go after children.
So it's running down the street. They beat the hell out of him.
It's scary to think, like BTK did this. It's scary to think that there are really people out there, more than we think, that are capable of doing these things. And random attacks happen every day on families. Somebody enters the house through a window, through an opening, comes in, and massacres a family.
There's not very many
these
cases
things do happen more than I think the general population realizes, until you look at crimes and you look at the psychopathy and you start studying other cases of what makes a killer. And I think that person fits our intruder psychopathy. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah. I mean, everything that we're saying makes sense. The problem is you can't really fit this intruder or intruders to any of these classes, because we don't know.
And we don't know of another crime they've committed, because RPD blamed Darlie and never looked to see, where other crimes committed in the geographic area. I know Amber Hagerman's case happened the same year.
They didn't look at one piece of evidence before they assigned guilt to her. Not one piece of evidence. That's how we investigate double homicides.
It took them 2 weeks to arrest
him. And Prater made up his decision before the sock was even found. And so, you've got, before Cron even talks to Darlie, before he even knows what side of the couch she's sleeping on, he makes these crazy assumptions that then when forensics and testing come back, it just doesn't gel.
Yeah, there's no intruder.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that don't gel with it. And that's the hard part. But again, you got that one initial shot to get things right, and they blew it. So it makes it a lot harder.
Heart's comment, because I think that's a great comment. I also heard of others in the neighborhood having strange things and attempted break-ins. Yes, we have looked at the geographic area. We know that everybody says, "Oh, Rowlett was this perfect, safe neighborhood." No, we found in our investigation that there was a lot of things happening in this neighborhood.
They had Mary Rickles on the stand.
Well,
I think it was a low crime area because the police were not reporting the crime.
Yeah.
They were brushing off those reported crimes.
The police are liars, right?
Here's what I was telling Anna, and I want to be careful with this, okay? I got to watch how I word things here. Now, I know the Rowlett Police Department, anytime when there's a homicide, especially to this magnitude, they're going to canvass the neighborhood. That's what the standard homicide detective is going to have done, which in this case that was done. I just don't think it was done good enough. After checking some things out and seeing things for what they were, there were people that lived with, let's just put it this way, within a couple mile radius of Darlie, several people that had felony criminal records as long as my arm, and some of them are rather severe.
Who are they?
That would definitely line up to something like this, not necessarily murder, but things that line up close to it on the felony bracket. These people weren't questioned. These people weren't, these people weren't taken to the police department. They weren't screened. They didn't alibi them out. They didn't do anything of it. They didn't do none of that.
Because they weren't
They did knock on some doors. Yes, they did. But I want to know how many people that had very serious crimes under their belt, convictions. I want to know how many of those were looked at carefully. I want to know how many of those were taken to the station for questioning and to find out what their whereabouts were. And the answer is a big 0.
Well, and some of the things that as an investigator you're looking for, you're not always looking for these felony, maybe breaking in or murder charges or things like this.
They should
be looking at
robbery.
Things like petty crimes, burglaries, peeping Tom. This is kind of
peeping Toms. Yes.
Yes. That's kind of the cycle of how a killer such as Ramirez or Gacy start. They start by, early, probably things that children shouldn't see. Like Richard Ramirez saw pictures of dead people in Vietnam, and was it Bundy or one of them that, started watching porn at an early age, and it just escalated into, okay, I'm going to go look at women now. I'm going to go peep now. I'm going to go do.
I've done a lot of study on Ted Bundy, and it's very sad because the man really could have had a good set future if he wasn't so psychologically ill.
Well, a lot of them can. They're smart.
Oh yeah, no, a lot of them are extremely intelligent. But the problem is, with Ted Bundy, in one of his last interviews before he was executed in the state of Florida, and I mean, he looked genuine. I mean, he was a classic sociopath, but he looked pretty genuine on that last interview. And
Ted Bundy was raised by his
he said,
grandmother,
and I advise all parents about this. He said, what happened to me, it wasn't that I had a bad family life or, my family wasn't loving to me.
Went after people.
The problem is I went into a corner store. We would also know it as maybe a 7-Eleven or a racetrack today. And, back in those days, they used to have, and I remember this, back in the late 70s and early 80s, they actually would have a stand with magazines in it, and they'd have a little porn section, and they'd have like a little cover that covered it so, you didn't see the nudity.
Back in the day.
When you'd walk in the store. And he said it started with that. And then, and he'd start peeping through the magazines. He'd start liking it. Next thing you know, some time goes by. He starts looking through windows.
Yep, he was a peeping Tom.
And masturbating while watching women undress. And then it just keeps escalating more and more.
You start to get,
and this is what happens.
More and more violent towards a person. Like peeping Tom seems,
I'm trying to do this.
It's a violation, but it's not personal contact. Then they're going to go break in and maybe watch people and not do anything. Like we see BTK does this. Then they're going to start breaking in, and
the signature,
the person on a more personal level. It gets closer and closer to the violation of that person until the ultimate violation is to kill them.
And the signature on this case, in my opinion, is very, very close to what some of these other serial killers have done. So think that, Darlie went to sleep one night, and of course, everything she said that happened matches the evidence to the tick. And then Darlie just goes to bed one night,
does not match,
goes insane, and butchers both of her boys and almost kills herself. It's just unthinkable when you look at every
build up to the PTSD that she had all the life being molested.
Right. No, it doesn't show it at all.
I think there's two interesting points. James, thanks for commenting. We really appreciate it. But first of all, you said a lot of people come in through the front door. That is not true. A lot of intruders come in through windows, as I was just talking about in the Richard Ramirez case.
Well, how's it not true that a lot of people
there was
come
like
in through
lasers
the
on
front
the
door?
garage.
There are people that look
a
for
woman
doors
pulled
to be
into her
open.
garage, and he was able to slip in under before she ever noticed. So there's no sign of a break-in. And he shot her and her roommate.
Well, who was that?
But it has nothing to do with Darlie.
Who is that sick son of a bitch? What the hell was his name? He got executed some years ago. He went into that trailer. He went through the window of those two teenage girls' rooms,
Yeah,
slit both of their throats, killed the one girl.
Tommy Lynn Sells.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now,
you're an investigator.
Yeah, he went through the window. He didn't go through the floor.
Yep.
There's a lot of instances of removing windows and cutting windows to get into certain areas of the house.
They used to accuse.
And then another thing, I think this is
let me remind you that screen was cut from the outside, not the inside.
Outside,
yes. At the Routier house, yes.
It doesn't matter.
Well, and then he brings up the point about juveniles. I think this is a really interesting point, and we've talked about this in specifically this case study and a few other ones, is that a lot of teenagers do the dirty work and get young kids pulled into these killers. I mean, we saw Dean Corll do this. He was a serial killer out of Houston. Gacy takes his same approach, and he hires young men so that young men feel comfortable coming in and out of his house. And the teenagers are the ones that dug the tunnels under John Gacy's house. So do some of the teenagers in this area might know about some of these things? I believe that is a strong possibility in this case. And another thing is, why does this crime look staged? It doesn't look staged. To me, it looks like that Darlie fought like hell, and the table got turned over, the lampshade is broken, she's fighting.
Alan
Know that Devin at one point was at least probably
she changed the word from fighting to
blood drippage. We know that Damon, at least stood up. And so you have people moving around this scene. I don't see how you believe it's staged, but that's my opinion. To me, it looks like something.
I think it looks staged because James Cron told people it was staged, and then the police looked for things to implement that it was, to imply that
there was nothing there to apply.
But you don't stage a scene. You don't stage a scene and then not mention or not bring attention to the things that you've staged.
He went out in the garage.
Why would she have not said? Or i.e. the screen. The screen is cut. He must have come in through the window. We had a window open. She didn't say any of that. She said he came in through the garage. Yeah. She didn't say anything about a sock. She didn't say anything about any of that. So why would that be a staged item without her including it in her story?
She tried to get rid of that sock.
And again, going back to the way we look at some of these other killers, like a lot of killers will take the murder weapon from inside of the home. It's a very signature thing. Yeah. The Golden State Killer did it. Ramirez did it, because it doesn't tie you. It doesn't bring your DNA or something of yours that they can connect you to. Then you leave that murder weapon at the scene, because if you're caught fleeing, you don't want the murder weapon on you. If you get pulled over running away from the crime scene, you don't want that weapon tied to you.
Well, not just that. I've always believed that there were two different knives involved in the Devin and Damon Routier murders, because if you look at the signature of the wounds, they don't match. It's clear, very clear to me that there were two different weapons used. And I've even heard Mr. Routier make that statement. And I don't want to speak for your mother, Dana, but I think your mom might think that too. And if I'm wrong, please state that I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure your mom has told me that in the past.
I've got you clips.
And I agree with him wholeheartedly. What's your opinion on that, Danelle? Do you believe that it was just that knife from Darlie Lynn's kitchen, or do you believe that there may have been another weapon used?
I do think that there is evidence to support that there was a second weapon used. I think the fact that there was no blood from Devin on that knife really does support that as well. Also, the fact that Devin's wounds don't exactly line up with the measurement that you would expect for that knife to have made. So there's definitely enough evidence for me to say, yes, there definitely was a possibility that there was a second knife involved.
I agree with that.
But,
and Cheyenne said this was planned, not random. They knew that plan. I do agree with that as well. I think that this person was watching the house, watching the movements of the family. They knew at least how to walk around in that house. I don't think it was just a blunt berserk.
Okay, if it was planned, right? This is where they're watching the house, they're watching what's going on. It's planned. When Darren took Dana home, two adults, basically, she was 16, left the scene, and Darlie was there alone with the kids. If it was planned, why didn't they strike then?
random attack, but I do think that somebody was watching, knew the inside of the house, knew the family enough, whether it was through peeping Tom. You know, Darlie had some reports of men stalking her. She was obviously a very beautiful.
Darlie had no reports of men stalking her. None. Absolutely none. That's a fucking lie.
Woman. You know, did somebody follow her from the grocery store back to her house? Did somebody at Test Neck?
She couldn't go to the grocery store back to her house. Darren had the car.
You know, get the hots for Darlie. And
I don't understand where they keep coming up with Darlie so hot. I mean, she's just not. Sully's better looking than Darlie is. And, you know, in my opinion. And Sully's not all that either.
Kind of knew some of that family. I mean, that's something that we can only speculate right now.
Yeah, that's what you
also, before I forget, Darlie Lynn's 55th birthday is actually next month.
January 4th.
And so I know some of the people in the comment section, I know all of us on the panel, obviously, we always write to Darlie or talk to Darlie. But she does, her 55th birthday is coming up. It's right around the corner here, the first week of January. So
January the
anybody wants to send her a happy birthday card or whatnot, please do so, because she would very much love to hear from you.
Yeah, so January 4th, right? January 4th.
Yeah, January 4th.
Right. Yeah, okay. Mm-hmm. Yes, Kim, yes. I'm so glad. It's prayers for Darlie, making chicken cutlets as I listen. Thank you for continuing to bring attention to this injustice. And I do want to touch on one last thing that Brianna brought up twice, is that we did just have an election, and some of the people from the Court of Criminal Appeals will be changing due to that election. Danelle, do you know enough about these new circuit judges to be able to speak as to whether this would help or
I don't. No, okay, I do not.
A new circuit judge probably doesn't want to start their term out by releasing somebody that's been on death row for 20-some years. Honestly, that's political.
I don't even.
Just like the prosecutor in the Menendez case, he wanted to go out with a bang and try and get them to re-look at the Menendez case and possibly get them released. But it's up to a new prosecutor. And that's one of the stumbles that they're going to have. Mark Aragos was speaking about it. They're going to have a stumble because they have a new incoming prosecutor in the Menendez case. And they don't want to start out by letting people go.
Yeah, I don't talk about politics publicly. I won't even share my political views with my husband. So, but I do not know enough about these judges, but I do know that he is very much a death penalty supporter. So you expect for the people that he elects to also share in that philosophy.
I was going to say, Texas is a very Republican state. I think all of our thing,
red.
Whether it was the CCA down to president and different types of government, but Texas voted very Republican, which is going to mean that probably they will have the death penalty stance as one of their objectives. And so, hopefully the Innocence Project is aware of that and they can push through that on the political side.
And I also wanted to tell people, and Danelle, I'm not trying to put you on the line or on, but if anybody wants to know what kind of.
In the chat, we have James Wood. Now, his rule is you can't disrespect the family, right? But in the chat, you have James Wood that's continuously blaming Darren, right? That is insulting to the family. Darren did not kill those children. He covered up for Darlie.
Person Darlie is very similar to Danelle. Their personalities are very, very similar. And I was telling Darlie Lynn about that, after I met Danelle quite some time ago, and she goes, a lot of people tell me that, but they're very much alike in similarity of the way they think and act and so on and so forth. So if you kind of want to know the person that Darlie Lynn is, just look at Danelle.
Well, us non-supporters have seen Danelle's anger. We have seen her lie. We have seen her misconstrue the facts. We have seen her think that she could just come into our groups and change our minds. Just like Darlie thought she could sit on that stand and convince that jury that she didn't do what she did.
Danelle because it's extremely similar.
They're totally,
and that is definitely a good thing. So, and I mean that in a good way. But I don't blame you though, Danelle. As far
I
as
take that as a compliment.
absolutely,
Thank you.
that's an
I take it as a
absolute
compliment.
Darlie is a beautiful human inside and out. We all, like Rich said, we all know her.
now she knows this from talking to her on a machine. That's how she knows this. Keep that in mind. I used to write back and forth to Darlie, so can I claim that I know her? No, I know what she wrote down.
In some sort of way personally, but I mean, it would be like, and I've had these thoughts since I started looking at the cases. What if a random attack happened in my house? What would people say about me as a mother? You know, and it's scary almost to.
That is one of the biggest things I take away from this as her sister and watching it firsthand. I am always aware of how this will look in the public or how this will be perceived by people that don't know the background story. I am always watching that, always. And I teach my children that too.
Well, and like, I hate to throw this out there, but like, if someone to be like, hey, Danelle like hurt her children in some way, I would be like, no, she didn't. I mean, I know you know, it's like,
right.
I wouldn't believe that.
Or if somebody were to say that about me, like Rich knows me personally, Danelle,
right.
I spent time with
Rich
you.
has said bad
stuff
about you,
like, I'm a
we've
different
heard
person as a mom than what you guys might perceive of me as a content creator or a YouTuber who talks about true crime and works in a funeral home. You know, there's different facets to all of us.
Well, actually, I think Danelle's been an incredible mother because I've met Danelle's children and I like all of them.
I would agree.
Do you remember? I don't want to talk about names here.
I'll tell you, I had a conversation with her oldest daughter, and I was very impressed. There's no doubt that Danelle is a great mother because I got that from her child, that she didn't go off on me for messaging her. She was very to the point, very real. She understood why I felt like I felt like. She didn't get snappy with me. So I was very impressed with Danelle's daughter when I spoke with her. I really was. I'm a good judge of character, and I feel like that young lady was raised properly. She got a lot of good values. Like I said, she didn't go off on me. She knew who I was. She didn't go off on me at all.
But you remember, Solly, when we were talking to one of Danelle's children?
I absolutely know what you're talking about. Yes.
I mean, her frame of mind on life and independence blew me away because it's so outstanding.
Very smart.
Well, I don't know what you did, Danelle, but I say it's impressive.
Beautiful, strong children, Danelle, who are smart and stable, and despite what your family's been through, I mean, I look up to you as a mother.
Well, and you know what?
Thank you.
I wrote and told your sister about that too. I just said how blown away. It's not that I was surprised necessarily, but it's just good to see a young person have their head on straight and they're focused with their life and their future. You don't see much of this anymore.
I would agree.
And when I was her age, I didn't have that. And when I should have, because at that time when I was this child in reference his age, I had already had a couple kids by that time. So I just found that to be amazing. I mean, she is on top of it. So, and I was telling Garda then how impressed I really was with that.
It really doesn't have anything to do with the case because my children are all different. As a matter of fact, you know, I've got one transgender child. I've got two boys that are ministers. I've got one boy that's a hustler, makes money, works with me. Got another boy that is just a family man, stays out of the way. Got one doing life in prison. So kids are going to come out the way they want to come out. All you can do. My dad was great, you know, and he's still great. In fact, I need to give him a call. But he tried to instill things into me that I didn't listen to as a child. And when you get older, it's too late. I've told my dad over and over, boy, I wish I would have listened to you. My life would have went a different way. Sure would have.
So, but anyway, I don't want to get in all.
Look at this James Wood in the chat. They are not connected. Talking about Dana now, talking about Darren. They're just not talking about it. That's one of the rules that he has for us. People coming in there and insulting the family. This guy's been doing it all through here.
All your personal stuff on here. It's really nobody's business, including my own. But I don't know if I ever had the chance to tell you about that or not, but it really impressive. Your child talked to me and Solly for quite some time outside, and we were both blown away by
sweetheart.
And I told her, I said,
my son's obsessed with her. So
thank you guys. I lost connection for a second there, but thank you very much.
I'm like, who we're talking about is like my son's new favorite person. So
he's obsessed, huh?
I know we're kind of wrapping up at the end here, but really quickly, since it is the holidays, I just want to tell everybody, thank you so much. Danelle, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for inviting us to personal things, and getting to know you has been such an honor to me. And I just want to say to Rich, like this year,
if you look at my community post, I've got a comment for Kitchen Table Research that says, I am the queen of the Darley case now. All you got to do is kiss a little ass. They used to love me too, as a supporter. Not Danelle specifically, but her mother. And as soon as I backed away from support, he doesn't know us, blah, blah, blah. But the people that are in non-support know better. All you got to do is say she's innocent. You got a new friend.
We worked a couple of cases together, and he's taught me so much and has put me on this new path in my future to private investigation. I just really owe you a huge thank you, Rich. I mean, I don't think you understand how you've mentored and been there for me.
You owe me nothing. You know what I want you to be able to do is
Rich is not a private investigator.
help me solve this case. That's all I ask.
I'm going to.
You're on it. You're on it.
I'm going to.
Because I can't imagine what it does to Danelle and Darley Key and whoever, and the family that goes down there. But I know what it does to me when I go down there, because she's a friend of mine. And I know you never had the pleasure of being able to visit her down there, at least not yet, Anna. But hopefully you won't have to. Hopefully you can meet her on the outside soon. But
now Kathy Ramsey says that she hasn't been able to visit Darley because it gets in the way of the family visiting. That's what she told me during the chat. See, I don't believe that Kathy Ramsey knows the family like she says she does. And she tells me in a chat, I said, well, have you ever been to see her? Well, I can't really get on the list because it takes away from other people, the family going over to see her and blah, blah, blah. But we've had Richard Wright, Darren Gross. What was that other guy's name? There's another one that she was seeing. Richard Wright, Darren Gross. I forget the other guy. There was another guy that she was seeing. And Rich Prater goes there. Barb Davis has been able to go there. The people have been able to go there. I just don't think Kathy Ramsey knows them as well as she says.
Every time I think about doing it, I'm like, oh, once I go through the stages and get approved, she's just going to be out. I don't know.
Well, it makes you sick to see somebody like her in there. I'm going to tell you that. And you compare it to a lot of the other gals that are in there with her. It's extremely heartbreaking. But Darley has this thing about her where she can lift your spirits.
She's very charming
and make you feel happy. And when you do leave there, you feel really good, like psychologically, just because of how positive and powerful person that she is. I don't know how the hell she does it. I couldn't do it. I wouldn't even pretend like I could do it. I don't know how she does that. Truly an amazing person. And that's just the beginning, but it's still extremely heartbreaking to think about. So,
well, somebody had asked, is she allowed to visit with the other women on death row? I think Danelle can answer that better.
A little bit, yeah.
Yes, she is. However, Danelle has not touched, hugged, given her sister a kiss since the day she was arrested. Here in Texas on death row, you are behind a pane of glass. It doesn't matter if you get married, if this happens. Unfortunately, Drake had some medical issues. Darley was never allowed to touch him again. Anyone.
Well,
So,
you get like a little square screen about this big to talk through.
and I'm like, yeah, when you watch the Richard Ramirez documentary, he was able to go have a full-on wedding and kiss his
Yeah.
bride. And that disgusts me. Like, why is he allowed to
So
do
is
that?
Tex
Yet here in
Watson, he was
Texas,
able to get
Darlie
married
can't
and
give
have
her
children.
sister or her own other
Depends
child
on if there's
a hug or a
visits or not.
kiss. And like, that's just a basic human need.
Well, I'm of course I would love to give Darlie a hug, but I would much rather see her be able to hug Danelle and Darlie Key and Dana
Right.
and Drake
Yeah.
and you know, Darlie's sister's children, which I know she cares about all of them deeply. I know that for a fact.
You know what she tells you, Rich.
So that's the thing that's just horrible for me to imagine. And I, you know, like for Danelle and Darlie Key, oh my God, I just can't imagine. You guys are amazing people. I do know that. So, and you guys know if you ever need anything.
We're just survivors.
Well, and I'm glad you guys do what you do because you'll be able to help somebody else. And, you know, I always told Darlie, because, you know, she's got the brains for like what me and Anna do. And I always told her, I said, you know, you get out.
What is it that
I said, I would put in serious. You know,
what is it that you do? You sit on here with a bunch of other supporters, Rich, and you talk about how innocent Darlie is, and Darlie said this, and Darlie said that to another bunch of supporters. A private investigator would be able to make their case to anybody, those that think they're innocent or guilty. Now they're trying to push you off as a private investigator, which is what you introduced yourself to this case as a private investigator. You're not a private investigator. You work for Prater Concrete. It's not even your company. You're not a private investigator at all. Solely maybe trying to get into that field now. It's possible that she could become one, right? But you are not a private investigator, Rich. You're not. You speculate too much and you talk too much. If Darlie tells you that she wore a fucking wig during a visit, you shouldn't be out here telling people that. You really shouldn't. That's my opinion.
You know, if you get settled and whatnot, I would put in serious consideration on being an advocate to trying to help other people that are in your position. And
so what cases have you worked as a private investigator, Rich? Where were you hired as a private investigator? It pisses me off that Danelle introduced you as a private investigator. You work from 8 to 6 as a superintendent, you say, of a concrete company, not a supervisor. And if you are a supervisor, it's because it's family owned. That's hard work. I'm not knocking you for that. I'm knocking it for you trying to portray yourself as a private investigator. Mac Wallace wants to talk to you.
You know, and she's not saying she wouldn't do it. But, you know, the thing that I get saddened about the most is when she said, Rich, you know, I've been dealing with this so long. Sometimes I just feel like throwing my hands up and saying, to hell with it, I don't want to deal with this anymore. I said, Darling, you can't do that. And I said, because if you do that, they're just going to do it to somebody else. I said, you have to keep fighting for the right thing.
And they don't speak on anybody else's case. Now, Sully does. She does cases out there. But they're not out here doing a video about so-and-so that was wrongfully convicted, or this person that was wrongfully convicted, or like the Cameron Todd Willingham case. He was put to death on something that he didn't do. They don't speak on this stuff. Like the David Cam case. Took him 3 trials. Tom Bevel was involved in that. Took him 3 trials to prove his innocence. And believe it or not, I'm trying to get a hold of David Cam because Bill Clutter and David Cam, Investigating Innocence, the ones that used to run ISU for Darlie Routier, that's now been taken over by supporters because Indiana State University backed out of it. And David Cam backed out of it. Bill Clutter said that David Cam was going to get in there and show that Darlie Routier was innocent, and he was going to raise the bar on that case. And we haven't heard from David Cam since. I know where he is. He still lives in Indiana. He got $4 million. First thing he did was buy himself a new Harley. I'm trying to get a hold of him and ask him, you know, why did you turn away from the Darlie case? I'm interested in that.
I know that's extremely easy for me to say, but and I even told her that. But
look at this. The comment, James Wood. Darren is a scammer. That's insulting the family, Rich. How come you don't even stand up for your own things, your own rules? Why?
she keeps on fighting. That's for sure. I don't know how she does it. I really don't. So
she's amazing. I mean, that's all I have to say. And yes, Kim, I pray for the day I can hug her. You can hug her. We can all, I'm sure Danelle is just, I can't imagine what you go through, Danelle, like through the holidays, not having your sister, knowing she's there. And
why do you bring it up?
I hope by next Christmas she's here with us.
Yeah,
thank you guys. And it is hard.
Pray every day, baby.
I like it when people say, hey, Christmas is just around the corner. I say, no, it's not. I always forget where I put Christmas, but I think it's down the hallway, last door on your left.
Someday, very soon.
I think so.
We're definitely trying to put money on that. I want to believe that, and I do believe it's going to happen. But all the red tape. Oh my God, it just takes forever.
It takes so long. It
didn't take Melissa Lucio very long. From 2022 to 2024, it took. From the time that they put a stay of execution on her. But to let these people tell it, Darla Routier saved her life. And I'm going to tell you, I did my research on that, and I spoke to somebody that writes to Melissa. And the fact of the matter is, Darla did tell her lawyers from the Innocence Project, she did throw it at them. What about Melissa Lucio? What about Melissa Lucio? And that's how they got involved. That's how the Innocence Project got involved. But the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals was involved in her case from the time that she got her stay in 2022. It wasn't Darlie that saved her life. It was the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals that looked at that situation. And they're like, well, we've got kids out here that are saying that she was never abusive. There's one that says she was, but she's going to be out. She's going to get out based on evidence.
I mean, they don't waste no time putting people in there, but my God, once you're in the system, it's real hard to get out.
Yeah.
So, and and God, I hate to keep going on, and I'm sorry, if you got something to do, but there's something else I want to point out. And Bonnie, I'm putting you on the spot again. I hope you don't get upset, but Bonnie had some problems with her sons from her previous marriage. I'm not going to go into detail, but
he proceeds to go into detail.
Bonnie will sit and obviously talk with me about it sometime. And I told her one day, I said, Bonnie, you know what you ought to do since, we go down and visit Darlie? I said, why don't you talk to her about it? I said, not me. I said, because it's not that I don't want to talk to Bonnie about it. It's just that Darlie Lynn has had losses to her life that no human being should ever have to bear. And she's extremely humbled and knowledgeable. And I said, you got to talk to her about it. Because
Nary, you're an OG. You can see that I've been putting out video after video after video on the Darlie case where I try to catch them in lies. And sometimes I make a mistake in a case, but I'll own it. And it is very interesting. I wish she would just admit that she did it, but she's never going to. She's got all these people that love her, all these people that feel like she's innocent, and she's just never going to do that. She just never is. Nary, you could go over to Rich's. He'll probably let you over there. Actually, he won't let any of us hardcore non-supporters over into his chat, even though I've been on his show. He won't let us over there anymore because he doesn't like to hear the truth about Darlie. He just really doesn't. And I know you've been around long enough to see me do this case, and I can do it civilly until somebody starts insulting me or insulting my intelligence. I can do it 100% civilly. I did on his panel. I've never went into his chat or onto his channel or onto his panel and disrespected anybody over there. Never once. And you've been around long enough to know how I am. But over there, I always behave myself. Now he's saying, since he did one live episode 56, and we were getting on his tail about, no, that's not correct. No, that's not correct. And he just got so fed up with it that now he doesn't let any non-supporter over there. He blocks all comments. It's pretty typical of them to do that. They want to talk about the case and they want to convince everybody that she's innocent, but the only ones they're convincing is themselves. That you have to convince, Rich claims to be a private investigator. For God's sake. So am I. I investigate this case. I'm an expert on this fucking case, by God. I'm no expert on this case. I'm not going to claim to be. I'm pretty slick with it, though, because I watch and I pay attention.
Because I think she would be a better help to you than I could ever be. And Bonnie has. Bonnie has talked to Darlene about it. They've written about it. They've talked about it on her visits. A
lot of times they slip away from the case on this and they start talking about other shit. My videos are about the case. The case.
Never really asked Bonnie what they talked about because Bonnie, she really doesn't like to talk about it for the most part to anybody. Because
if your wife doesn't like to talk about something, Rich, why are you telling hundreds of people? Why are you doing this? She don't want to talk about it. Have some fucking respect, man. You notice she's sitting there being quiet.
Upsets the hell out of her, but she does talk to.
Oh, it went unavailable. Let me see. I'll go back to the beginning. Well, it went unavailable. Huh. That's crazy. Unless he's doing some editing or something on it. But no, it's showing that the chat was disconnected in that too. I want to see what happens here for a minute. Wow. I've never seen it do that. Unable to connect to chat. Unable to connect to chat. I wonder if I'm blocked still. I bet I am. Yeah, I'm not, it's not, he must have took it down. No, he couldn't have took it down because he was right in the middle of talking. Oh, I see what happened. Because I was running it live as they were speaking. Well, shoot, let me, oh, he put it on private. For now. I guess he's got to edit it. I don't know. Sorry. That's the first time I've seen him do that. I think he's going to edit it. I wish they would offer her a deal. Nary. Nary's OG. I wish they would offer her a deal that if she just told the truth about what happened, they would commute her to a life sentence, death with parole. Well, Nary, they've been speaking on that for years, and the supporters would tell you that they did offer her that deal, and that she said no to that, right? Because in 2005 in Texas, they changed the sentencing structure for death penalty cases. You could give them death or life with parole after 40 years. Now they change it to you can give life, period, flat until you die. And I did a video about it, and they tried to say that Darlie turned that deal down, right? That's absolutely the crap, right? They said the state offered her that deal. And I talked to Toby Shook, one of the prosecutors, and we wrote to Lisa Smith, Dallas County clerk, and they absolutely did not offer her that deal. But again, in 2005, they changed the sentencing structure on that, and the Darlie supporters are trying to use that as, look, she turned that down. She turned that down. Well, let's think about it. Let's say she did. Let's say she got that deal from the state, which she didn't, but let's say she got that. That means she has no more appeals. No more appeals. No more chances to bullshit her way out of there. And she'd have to slip into general population off the safety and security of death row. I wrote a letter to her appellate attorney, Richard Smith, and I let him know that they are circulating that letter that was sent to Darlie, where her appellate team was trying to tell her, hey, we don't get deals like this all the time. I'm sorry that I pushed you, because they did go to her and say, hey, they've changed the sentencing structure. And maybe, just maybe, if you confess to what you did, we can get the state to go ahead and offer you life without parole. And the supporters taking that as the state offered her that. The state did not offer her that. They lie. But I made her appellate team aware that that letter that was privately written to Darlie was sent back out from the prison and has been circulating for the last 4 years as if. Look. But anyways, he made it private, so I don't know. Peace and chicken grease, y'all. I think I'm going to leave this be. It's hard for me to do this while I'm laying down. My back is killing me. My back is killing me. Let me see what's Chrissy. She's going to be there until she's put to death. Yeah, it's possible. Oh, it's strange. You know, I really do hope. I really do in the back of my head. I have empathy. I hope that they come up with something that proves to me and many others that Darlie Routier did not do that to her children. I would rather it be some fucking intruder than Darlie Routier killing her kids. I would rather it be that way. I hope they get what they want. And I've always said that. If they can convince me, right, which they can't, and they haven't been able to, if they're able to convince me with some compelling evidence that shows me that she's innocent, then they can convince anybody. Because I know the ins and outs of this case. I know how that family is. I know the innocence. I can argue the innocence on it if you wanted me to. I could come around tomorrow and say, hey, I'm a supporter. I can argue the innocence, but you can only go so far with it. You can only get so far, then you've got nothing. But I could convince people she was innocent. I can do it until they start questioning me. Anyways, I'm going to let this go, find out what happened with that video. But Rich Prater is not an investigator. And Danelle, she introduced him as an investigator, and she definitely gives no credit to James Cron, who actually is an investigator. Peace and chicken grease, y'all. Good to see you, Nary. Check out my other videos.